ask about the Israeli strike near a hospital in southern Beirut. Does the U.S. have comment on this strike that killed more than a dozen people and left dozens more injured?
So I've seen that reporting, Jenny. I don't have any specifics that I can offer as it relates to that operation. We, of course, will let the IDF and the Israelis speak to the kinds of operations that they are conducting. But look, we have been as clear as we have been that when it comes to operations that the IDF is undertaking to degrade Hezbollah, which we, of course, support, that every possible measure needs to be taken to minimize impact on civilians, to minimize civilian casualties, and that one step beyond that, every possible measure needs to be taken so that civilian infrastructure, whether it be hospitals, schools, anything in that category, that impact on that needs to be minimized as well. We have asked the Israelis for additional information as it relates to this particular strike, but I don't have anything to offer as it relates to that. I think let's also not lose sight on the fact that Hezbollah is a terrorist organization that does have deep-rooted infrastructure in various corners of Lebanese society, and part of that has included Hezbollah co-locating itself with civilian infrastructure. Again, as it relates to this particular hospital, I don't have any insight that I can offer from up here, but this is something we'll continue to engage on directly with the Israelis.
Will the U.S. conduct its own investigation into whether every possible measure was taken here to protect civilians?
Broadly speaking, Jenny, we have measures and levers and processes in place to ensure that international humanitarian law was abided by, that civilian harm was minimized in whatever way possible. I certainly wouldn't speak to that in these settings, and we would not necessarily open our own investigation at this point.
Has there been any investigations into whether Israeli measures in Lebanon or Gaza have taken every possible measure?
I just wouldn't
to protect
speak
civilians?
to ongoing or deliberative processes.
We have whether any of those have wrapped up.
We have talked about the tools that the United States has at its disposal to do this work. Basically, since the onset of October 7th, I know this group is quite familiar with them, whether they be CHURG, whether it be the Leahy process, whether it be the conventional arms transfer policy, and various other things. All of those are active, ongoing things that the United States continue to have at its disposal to assess circumstances around any country in which we have a security relationship with. And that, of course, is going to continue and will always be effective implementers of U.S. law. Leon,
I'll pass.
Okay.
Can I just ask quickly one more?
Yeah.
Did the Secretary get any commitments from the Israeli government today that they would increase humanitarian aid to Northern Gaza after the letter last week?
The Secretary in his readout, which I know you all saw, was pretty clear in his readout that there are still many things and many progress markers that we need to see as it relates to the flow of humanitarian aid. I don't have any specific commitments to outline beyond what was in the readout.
I asked because the Israelis don't make any mention of it in their own readout of that meeting.
Well, look, I am not a spokesperson for them. I'm a spokesperson for the U.S. government, and it is something that the Secretary has placed significant emphasis on, both in the letter from earlier in the month, the letter from April, but also the consistency at which the Secretary has raised humanitarian aid. And the Secretary made very clear that there are continued areas where we need to see market improvement.
Do you know how many aid trucks arrived in northern Gaza over the weekend up until today?
I don't have a specific breakdown for you on transit intra-Gaza. What I can say is what I answered to Saeed's question is that there were, and I will pull up the number again just to be precise, it was on October 21st, 114 trucks that we saw enter Gaza, which again, not at all, don't offer that statistic to say that that is satisfactory, but that is the updated metric that we have, and simultaneously we of course are stressing with partners in Israel that more needs to be done to enhance the flow of humanitarian aid.
I asked because a journalist yesterday on the ground in northern Gaza yesterday told me that an UNRWA facility in Gaza City had received 7 trucks containing flour and canned goods, but which have yet to be distributed, but received no water. I don't know what you do with flour without water. But they're having a hard time even distributing these because of the ongoing onslaught there.
I'm just going to stop you right there. We are not at all saying that the situation has improved or that the situation is satisfactory. Far from it. We have, in the immediate days following the letter that Secretary Blinken and Secretary Austin sent, we saw some important steps in the right direction as it relates to particular border crossings. Those were good, positive signs. I can say that on October 21st, 114 trucks made its way into Gaza, but of course we are continuing to see challenges as it relates to ensuring that aid is getting to where it needs to go within Gaza. That's something that we are continuing to work closely on with partners in Israel, NGO partners, and international organizations, and that's something we'll continue to stress. All right,
I want to ask about the intel leak on potential Israeli response plans to Iran. Some Republicans yesterday and today are criticizing administration officials for saying they're deeply concerned but otherwise not taking this seriously enough. What's your response to that? And yesterday you said this topic didn't come up in any of the Secretary's bilats now that he's in the region and having bilats today. Is that still the case?
So I don't have anything to read out on the Secretary's government-to-government engagements today beyond some of the readouts that we've already made public, and so I would refer you back to there. Look, as it relates to the issues surrounding the unauthorized disclosure, I think many of you have seen the statement from the FBI, who have indicated that they are investigating this. They've announced that, and I will defer to them to speak to it. Certainly, we would take any unauthorized disclosure. It's something that we take very seriously, and it is, of course, incredibly concerning. There are appropriate entities of the U.S. government that are the appropriate authorities for these kinds of things, and we, of course, will defer to them when these things happen.